Roth IRAs and other alternative approaches to emergency savings. I mentioned earlier I was going to talk about this. This is by Jamie Hopkins, this piece written here. And a recent Go Banking Rates survey found that 57.4% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved for emergencies. A separate Bankrate.com survey found that 39% of adults in the U.S. wouldn't be able to cover a $1,000 emergency expense using savings. That statistic that's held pretty steady since 2014. Hopefully that's improved of late. I would hope it is, and maybe with the child care credit that's coming out can help people with that. So while the last 15 months did lead to better savings habits and more disposable income than pre-pandemic among some adults with higher income, those living paycheck to paycheck are still not saving enough. So for many people, saving for an emergency fund is a first step towards, get this, financial wellness before savings for retirement. When somebody calls in and to the show and you've heard me ask them about their investments, so forth, they've got this money that they've come into, and then where should I invest it? You know, where I steer back to is first, do you have emergency savings outside of this? And a lot of times it's, no, I don't. Well, a portion of what you're talking about putting to work and investing should be emergency fund money. So taking care of that emergency fund is crucial, because you don't have that and something happens, you could fall into debt when things go bad. Now, here's kind of the rule of thumb. You've been told that you should always have roughly 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in your savings account. I would like, and that's a lower tier to look at it and kind of say you make $4,000 a month, but you only have $2,000 a month in expenses and you need 6 months of it. Well, that's an easier catch up to, that $12K than 40, would be $24K in that case if it was based on earnings there. I'd like to try to save equivalent of income, but it's a lower leap if you're looking to cover expenses, and that's probably the first tier to go to and then build up some more. But if we're looking at what are alternatives to emergency accounts, if you don't have that, but you have, say, a Roth IRA, that could be a interesting emergency fund vehicle if you don't have emergency savings or it's been taken away, because contributions into a Roth IRA go in after tax, and you can access them any point without negative consequences from both the income tax and penalty standpoints. You have really two parts to a Roth IRA. First, you have the tax-free investment growth portion, but this is only tax-free if you meet certain holding period requirements and triggering events. It's the 5-year rule. Money has to be there for 5 years and be beyond 59 and a half for the triggering rules. Then if you need to tap into the Roth IRA funds for emergency, you could tap into the other part. That's your contributions without facing additional tax penalties. So understanding that is after tax money, your contributions. So you can access them anytime without tax on earnings or on penalties, because that was principal in. Unique thing about that. So once again, some important considerations when utilizing Roth IRAs as emergency savings vehicle. It's not as easy to put the money back into a Roth once you've taken it out. While you might be able to repay within 60 days as a rollover, treating it as a 60-day rollover, you can only do one of those for IRA to IRA 60-day rollovers a year. So it's once every 12 months across all of your IRA accounts. So it's kind of difficult to pay yourself back when utilizing that. You should also consider your underlying investments in your Roth IRA if you can ensure a portion of your Roth IRA is not invested in anything volatile. So it's kind of saying right there, if you're going to kind of use a Roth account, possibly as emergency money, it probably should be invested conservatively. You don't want to have to sell stock to cash money out when stock's down. Another one, think about this. For many people, emergencies can often come in the form of unexpected healthcare costs. In such events, you could tap into a health savings account. So I think when you think about that, that does make sense because healthcare emergencies could be why you're needing to tap in to some money. Your HSA can serve as a nice emergency savings vehicle because money held in it within it can be invested for the long run, but still accessible if you had qualified health care expenses. In the article here by Jamie, one of the things noted here that he says basically most people use HSAs incorrectly or not in the most efficient manner. They use them like a flex spending account, put money in and taking it all out in the same year to pay their deductible in a high deductible health plan. Well, yeah, that's why you have an HSA, because you have a high deductible health plan. You can't open one otherwise. So in this situation, the HSA provides a tax deduction for the amount you put in up to the annual limit of $7,200 for a family in 2021. However, what you give up is the tax deferred growth as you can invest that money and the tax free investment gains you receive if you spent on qualified medical expenses in the future. So you could see why they would hitting the account, because we're talking about an alternative to not having an emergency fund. So if they have that emergency, they're having to hit the account. SHAs work best when you're healthy and don't have medical needs for a few years, and you could really build up that account. HSAs, did I say that right? I was trying to stumble across that. Realistically, HSAs are a great long-term savings vehicle because of the triple tax play. And here it is. And I love this about them. You get a deduction up front, you get tax deferred growth, and you can use the money for your unexpected qualified health care expenditures income tax free. That is the triple play we always look for on our money. Another place I'm not a fan of is home equity, and the other choice he was giving, your credit cards. Not a fan of doing that for emergency money either.